Ricardo.
Okay, thank you. I follow up a little bit on the some of the scientific questions that Antonio has presented. My name is Valentini, yes, okay. I just have a few slides, but I want to focus on a couple of issues that I think are challenges, still challenges for tropical regions about climate change, adaptation. And my basic message is that I think it's a message also for Brazil. I mean, if you look at the amount of science today on tropical regions, most of that is coming from Brazil. Brazil is leading in this area. And this what I want to really say is that it's time to really address from Brazil more broadly the international efforts. And also there is a room for space for collaboration, scientific collaboration, to address also other tropical regions that are less investigated, like, for example, the African ones. They will present some cases. And so this Italy and Brazil collaboration could really develop in this also way of leading science in these other regions. Okay, my first slide is about the first case I want to present as important, as we've seen also before in the previous discussion about there have been discussion about deforestation. So the importance of tropical forests and the importance in particular of the South American and Amazonian forest globally on carbon uptake. So the importance to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions in the atmosphere, the value, the possible potential also economic value of this important service of tropical forest. So this is well recognized, but today we have also challenges in this respect. So we can count on this, let's say, carbon sequestration from tropical areas. Next slide. But recent work is showing that climate variability can affect the stability of this carbon. So we cannot count forever on this tropical forest carbon. This is an example showing in the first panel the northern simulation or northern vegetation about future climate change, showing that there will be some gain in biomass, above ground biomass, the green stuff, and some losses in future carbon in the soil on the left, the brown bars. But if you go down to the tropics, there will be losses everywhere, both in the above ground biomass and the carbon stored in the soil. So there is really an urgent need to understand whether in the future climate there will be feedback so the forests can become not a sink but a source of carbon. So today we don't have yet a real good science to understand this. There are very few really models that address tropical regions in, let's say, in a very valuable way. And so this is really an interesting topic for to be addressed by Brazilian in particular. Do you have experience on this? And also from climate scientists as well. So I think this is the first issue I would like to highlight, the future of tropical forests in terms of carbon and greenhouse gas emissions. And please go on. The other point that I want to make is about agriculture and food security in particular. Food security is an important alarming question about the impacts of climate change. This is just a recent estimate we have done in our center on global nutritional requirements as a baseline. And you can see that there are many regions in the world. The number in parentheses are the number of people living per hectare with the sustainable food. You can see most of the areas in the red. You have from 0 to 3 people per hectare living with enough food. You see all Africa, for example, again, is that you have very, very poor resources. While, for example, if you look at North America, Europe, also South America in part, and some part of Asia, you have, let's say, more people, like between 12 to 20 people living per hectare. So this is a message that still we have a big difference, and climate will exacerbate this, will really make this worse in the future. So we have to address this also with our scientific knowledge. Next slide. Another example where also we should address the climate adaptation is biofuel production. Mario was referring before to the importance as Brazil in the history of development, the use of biofuels. For example, these are some recent simulations we have done showing the future. If you take, for example, Jatropha as a plant for producing oil, the impact of climate will be quite effective in most of the tropical regions. And so we need to know more about the impacts of climate in production of biofuels and what will be the vulnerability of such systems, also together with the sustainability of their production, of course. Next slide. And finally, I want to make this example of a project that we are coordinating as a European effort. We have about 20 European partners, and the CMCC is coordinating this major effort understanding climate variability in Africa and impacts on agriculture and water resources and adaptations. Next slide. And thanks to capabilities that we have, for example, now with our supercomputer that we just upgraded, now we are able to run models at a very high resolution at regional scale. Is an example of Nigeria, where we are working with the Nigeria government to assess the climate impacts on food production and the water resources. And you can see that we can run climate predictions at 8 kilometer resolution. It's quite very, very fine. So we can really detect point by point in the region is a dynamical downscaling, and this is very, very important. We can use impact models on crop yields and water, for example, in this case. Next slide. And not only so to detect change in crop yields, but also to look at what are potential adaptation strategies. So we have run our models, for example, not only to detect the changes in crop, but also to include, for example, like fertilization, water irrigation, or changing the calendar date for planting crops, and so on and so forth. So different adaptation strategies, and we are able to show what will be the best option to respond to climate change. So this is a tool that is available. I think it's very important for making our agriculture more robust to future climate scenarios, to use these tools in combination with climate model. But of course, this is a very computing time consuming. So you need a supercomputer, you need quite a lot of numerical power, because we are running more than 12 climate difference scenarios with different GC global climate model. So it's really a lot of numerical skills. Next. And finally, next, please. I want to just make a reflection on what we mean by adaptation. I think we are now looking at the range of time scales of climate effects. From, as Carlos was saying before, we have a range of times from hours, weather forecast, to the range or to the level of 100 years from now. Where do we focus? That's, I think, important question for policy, and I think if we go for very short responses, there is no time to react really, so we don't have much to adapt at 1 day or 1 month time. As well as if we go for prediction of 100 years, it doesn't make it's not appealing for a policymaker to say, okay, in 100 years we will have a different climate. I mean, there is no value of this. So I think there is an area that's about in the range of seasonal to decadal, so from season to 10 years time, where policy can really use our information, where it's possible to build infrastructure, where it's possible to make our agri-food system more secure. So this range is where the climate predictions are now evolving. There's a lot of now research, and also Antonio showed before, seasonal forecasting, decadal forecasting are important areas of challenges where I think the policy can take most of the benefit of the research. And final, I think these are some points. First of all, we're moving more to make climate predictions operational and able to serve the society. We call these climate services, and I think this is an important asset we have in our CMCC. We are serving the Italian government and many other agencies like World Bank and the European Commission on this matter. Challenges are important, as I said, on the seasonal decadal scales. It's important for investments in infrastructure, in adaptation. It's important, I think, for still very important to understand the response of tropical forests to climate impacts. There's not yet good, let's say, science in this, and this is why my hope is the Brazilian scientists can really bring lights more for all the tropical regions in the world. And focusing on Africa, I think, is also important. I think that Italian-Brazil collaboration could really put some, again, efforts on helping Africa to rise up. And I see this as technology, I see this as knowledge, as a really good point of collaboration between our two countries. Thank you.
Thank you very much.